As a small business owner, my favorite thing about posting a job on LinkedIn is that when I hit post, I clock out and LinkedIn clocks in.
LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, get qualified candidates, and manage them all in one place. Plus, LinkedIn extends the reach of your job post by allowing you to share it with your network. And hiring managers that add a hiring frame to their LinkedIn profiles receive 2 times more qualified applicants. Go to linkedin.com/achieve to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
Since you're new to H&R Block, we'll look at your returns from the last 3 years for any money your last guy might have missed for free.
I could get money back from last year?
You could. We'll find any mistakes.
Could have really used that 2 years ago when I dated that mistake for 5 months.
Don't leave money on the table. Switch to H&R Block and get a free second look review. Second look is included at no additional cost with the purchase of tax preparation. Results vary. All tax situations are different. Fees apply if you have us file an amended return.
You have to control yourself!
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking Carrie this week, which means we've got a very special guest interview. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and yes, everyone, you know him as the writer and director of such queer classic films as Sparkler and Jawbreaker. He returned to the director's chair in 2012 with the very underrated and underseen comedy GBF. You've also seen him as a guest judge many, many times on the Boulet Brothers' Dragula. Please welcome Darren Stein.
Hey, guys.
Hello! Welcome to the show. And welcome to Carrie.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk Carrie with you guys.
Well, so let's just dive in right there, because you mentioned off mic that Carrie really fed a lot into Jawbreaker. And why?
I think that the movie had such a visceral impact on me as a kid when I saw it. I did not see it in the theater. I mean, what year did it come out?
76.
76. Yeah. So yeah, I was like 5 when it came out. But, I saw the poster and, it was all over culture. It was like there was word of this prom queen covered in blood, and it just was such alarming. I might have first seen imagery of it in perhaps even Terror in the Aisles.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then I hunted it down on VHS, or I saw it on cable, and just became wildly obsessed with it in a way that only a queer kid can,
Wait, so how old do you think you would have been when you first saw it?
Oh, probably I would say 10 or 11.
Okay.
Yeah, way too young. Yeah.
Was this showing on TV?
It was on TV or cable or VHS or something.
Okay.
Probably just the prom scene. I remember the prom scene. I might have seen the prom scene before I even saw the rest of the film.
It was shocking to me because I was looking at the timestamp. We get to the prom before the hour mark of this movie.
There's so much, when the prom happens, I think there's still 40 minutes left.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 15 minutes before we even get to the bucket of blood.
Yeah. But I think I was so taken by also the fact that all the actors are so old and playing high school. And that sounds terrible to say, but seeing these kids, and it was the same for Grease, which is also a huge inspiration for Jawbreaker. That's why I cast girls like Rebecca Gayheart, Rose McGowan, and Julie Benz and Judy Greer, because it wasn't really about being real.
Mm-mm. Oh, because they were
they look like adults.
Teenagers.
No, it was seriously an homage to Carrie and Grease.
That is too funny. Okay, so you mentioned that this original Carrie really grabbed your attention as a queer youth. Were there specific things where you thought, oh, this speaks to me as a queer person?
Mm-hmm. Well, Carrie's otherness, the fact that she was sort of chastised and treated like a freak in such a blatant way.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you relate to the bullying aspect of it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I just felt bad for Carrie, and the idea that she could have telekinesis and have this power that could sort of protect her and embolden her and flare up, just based on her emotions.
Well, I think that's interesting, because I also like really relate to Carrie as a character because I think anyone who's been bullied or been like the odd person out can relate to that. But I saw so many like references to her as a quote unquote monster, and
Right.
I get that like she's the what do we want to say
She's the antagonist and the protagonist?
Yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, look, does she kill people that I wish wouldn't have been killed? Yes. I mean, well, person. Does she kill person that I wish she wouldn't have been killed?
Miss
Yes.
Collins, rip.
No! but I also don't think she's fully in control of her power in those moments.
No. Because, of course, this is all tied to adolescence and puberty and that kind of stuff. So this is her navigating waters that she doesn't understand or fully know how to control. And I think you could also make the claim the way the movie treats her, she's like either a superhero or a mutant where she's got this ability, but she doesn't have anybody she can talk to. Like there's no Xavier school for the, telekinetic to go and be like, hi, I've got blood magic things and I don't know how to control it.
Yeah, I would argue that she's mostly the protagonist and that the revenge is kind of it's not the most terrible thing. I mean, yeah, it's sad that Miss Collins dies. It's sad that the school literally, she kind of like destroys the entire student body burns in that building, which they don't show, but they infer, right? Well, not even infer that. You see the flames, right?
Yeah. I mean, basically everyone in the senior class, and I guess all the faculty has died except for Sue.
Yeah.
But Sue Snell gets the ultimate punishment because she has to live with it and be sort of tortured,
I think about that a lot, honestly. Like every time I end this, because and we end the movie with her going hysterical. And there's a really funny anecdote from like when they were test screening this movie, and how they weren't sure if it was going to be a hit or not, but they knew when it was screening and the end was happening and Sue was going nuts. But like you have her mom kind of saying, "Well, the doctor said that she's young enough and she'll forget in time."
Oh my god!
And I guess when this was happening, someone in the audience just yells, "That girl ain't never going to be right again." And everyone laughed, and then of course they get the jump scare, and then they were all like, "Oh, this is a hit on our hands."
In a way, Sue is the one who puts all this into motion, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Sue is the one who's like, "Oh, take Tommy to prom," Like you kind of have to wonder, what is Sue thinking? Like, what adolescent girl gives up her prom date?
Well,
right.
but I think this is a testament to Amy Irving's performance, though, because she doesn't get a ton of dialogue in this movie, and it's a lot of face acting. So I think, when Miss Collins is chastising the girls in the gym, like she looks like she feels remorseful in a way that none of the others really do. But I do wish Sue and Chris had more scenes together, because I still they have interactions, but I never get the feeling that they're actually friends.
Yeah, I was curious about the quote-unquote hierarchy, what was going on. I mean, you get the sense, obviously, that Chris is the alpha, the most popular girl kind of thing.
Yes.
And Sue is part of that quote-unquote clique. But kind of in the 70s, I don't know, they weren't quite the cliques that you have in, Heather's Jawbreaker, Mean Girls. I think it's more like Sue...
I just realized, oh my god, I have a director of a high school movie here. I have to talk to you about that. Because, I always think that, the portrayal of high school, hierarchies and villainy is more accurate for, what my middle school experience was like. Like, my high school was nowhere near how the movies portrayed it as.
Yeah, I think there's a sophistication to Carrie in that the Sue character, Chris, and then the PJ Souls character, Norma... Yeah, they're all kind of buddies, but, you kind of feel like they're all a little bit kind of in their own little orbits. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Chris really controls, she's most concerned with controlling the John Travolta character.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah, I very much get the impression that they act this way because they are taking one class together or a couple of classes together. But I don't think we see Chris in the English lit class where Carrie is professing how beautiful Tommy's poem is or anything. So, and it's entirely possible that, they just had different schedules. But I think you could read it as, in particular instances, Chris will absolutely take the lead. If she's around, she's going to be the leader, and it has to be her way because she's super entitled and opinionated. But then, Sue definitely has a certain amount of power because she's willing to stand up to Chris.
Yeah, in a way, Sue feels like the most powerful girl in school. I think Chris is just more concerned with getting laid and fucking her boyfriend and just being an anarchist, kind of, But I do feel like Sue is the most ambiguous character in the movie to me, because in the beginning when all the girls are saying plug it up, Sue's the one who rips off the fucking tampon machine and opens it up. Sue instigates that bullying.
Well, But because they're already doing it though. But I agree with you. Like there's a very like intentional shot where we see her rip the cover off of what would we call that? Like the sanitary
napkins
holder. Like yeah,
the tampon machine, whatever.
But I think this is where the film could have done more to like maybe develop Sue a little bit more. But I think it's more so like I can relate to that, you know, because when you're in school, you're a follower. So she was following and she was doing it. Was like, and you know, I don't think most of them realize, in the words of Miss Collins, how shitty of a thing it was that they were doing.
Yeah, they're already doing it before they even start to think about how does this make Carrie feel, or oh wow, should we maybe not?
Yeah,
it is probably one of the most intense scenes of bullying there is in the history of cinema.
And it's the first scene of the movie.
Oh yeah, this movie goes in. It goes in so hard, like you know that you are in for it when you're just seeing all that full frontal and below nudity, slow motion, Pinot Donaggio score.
Oh my god, the score!
I mean, and then just black it out, and just the way that the blood, the shots, the cutting recalls, you know, Hitchcock's Psycho shower scene.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like you're in for it. The horror is horrific, and I would argue there's like equal horror as far as the cinema of it all, the blood of it all, but also just the bullying of it all. It's just working on a million levels, and then in a modern context, the score feels, you know, camp now, but back then.
Yeah,
I suppose it was just sort of like heightened. I don't know.
I mean, I think there's a lot of different shades of Donaggio's score because I think in the more tender, like soft moments where we're supposed to feel pretty sad, they're very effective. I don't think they they don't overdo it.
I mean, it is an unforgettable score. Like I'm notoriously not good at paying attention to scores, Darren, and this one, every single instance, I was like, there is that score because it would not let me forget it was happening. I'm not saying that in a bad way because I do think that the score is super effective at helping you to set that mood and tone.
And it's a tone I kind of feel is unlike anything I had seen up till that point. And so when you combine that lush, you know, super melodramatic emotional score plus the visceral horror of the period plus the bullying, I think it was Janet Maslin in her review who said that the film was like an homage to exploitation pictures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to Russ Meyer and what have you. And the women are really shot like Russ Meyer, you know, sort of figures with their breasts and bodies on full display, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'd be interesting if this film got made today, if it would be taken to task for, I don't want to say it's the objectification of women's bodies, because it's hard, right? Because in some ways, I had forgotten how fucking female dominated this movie is. Like, Tommy is in here and he looks like a puppy dog. Like, he is so unimportant to everything. He's a patsy.
Oh my god! But I think William Katt's performance does a really good job of making this character
great.
Very likable. Like every time he smiles, I kind of swoon a little bit, and I don't even like that hair.
But it's not his movie.
No, the females fully dominate this movie, even down to Betty Buckley. You know.
Oh, so good.
And I would say the Betty Buckley character is sort of similar to the Sue Snell character in that, well, first of all, she was only a couple of years older than the other girls when they shot this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They were all fucking adults. And secondly, you get the sense that the Betty Buckley character is still holding on to the wounds of her adolescent experience.
Because she talks about her prom night, too.
I was going to say, that is like a one-to-one comparison when she's having that convo with Carrie.
Exactly. So I would say that the two, so A, it's Sue Snell who's like, oh, take Tommy. And then it's Betty Buckley who tells Chris she can't go to prom. So that 1-2 punch sets in motion Carrie's downfall/revenge.
Mm-hmm. Wow, to say nothing of course, a
Chris.
certain religious... Oh, I was going to say a religious figure.
Oh, I was going to be like, I mean, yeah, they all like put the pawns in place, but it's Chris who does the execution. But yes, you're right.
But I would say like three antagonists in this film are, you know, I would just argue kind of Sue Snell, Betty Buckley, and the mom, of course, Piper Laurie.
Well,
yeah.
But with Sue and Miss Collins, though, can they be like unwitting antagonists? Yeah.
Yeah. They're accidental.
And you know, those complications are what makes this film so magical. I mean, so iconic, so visceral. You know, is the emotion behind all this. I mean, this movie is opera. This is cinematic opera.
But that's what, you know, because I mean, yes, this is a horror movie because of what happens in the last 20 minutes. But at the same time, I feel like so much more of the horror doesn't come from the actual prom scene itself. As you said, Darren, it comes from the more real life moments like this bullying, which seems extreme, but I also don't think it's necessarily
that
far out of reality. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the way, because Carrie, loves her mother and her mother loves Carrie. And it's a heartbreaking relationship, also.
Mm-hmm.
And even Betty Buckley, Miss Collins cares so much about Carrie, but cares too much, so much so that she gets her, in trouble in a horrible way.
Well, but I love that moment, though, when she's with the principal after the plug it up scene and she's telling him, like, the shitty thing is I understood how these girls felt. Like, I wanted to hit her, too. It was just her period. And I think that's a dangerous line that could turn the audience against the character. But the way Buckley delivers it, I think it works.
It's relatable.
It's fully relatable, yeah. I mean, and then just the sheer amount of slapping that goes on in this movie.
So much. We're slapping so many minors in this movie.
Yes. Thank God they're all of legal age as actors.
I mean, the only other movie that I feel like has girl-on-girl slapping like this is Mommy Dearest.
Yo, wow. But that is camp.
This is too, I would argue, I hate to say, but like this, has a camp side to it. It really does.
Well, but I think that comes from De Palma, though, because there was an interview with Piper Laurie where she said she read the script and, she didn't connect to the character of Margaret White because she was like, this is a caricature. This isn't something that's like worth playing. And I believe it was her husband that said, oh, well, Brian De Palma puts comedy in almost everything he does. And then she was like, oh, I didn't read the script right. And then she read it again and was like, oh, this is a satire. And got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And even Margaret White looks gorgeous. Like she has a full head of red hair.
Oh my God,
her face is cherubic. For someone who's a Pentecostal crazy woman, she sure looks, she's very glamorous in her own way.
She reminds me of the lead actress from David Cronenberg's The Brood.
Oh, Samantha Eggar.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and maybe it's just the hair color and the styling of the time, but it's just like these gorgeous monsters.
Yeah, I think she, as to Darren's point, she has a bit more of a cherubic face, whereas Samantha Eggers has a bit more of an angular face. But I think the intensity of both performances is there.
Yeah.
But I don't like calling Carrie a monster because I feel like, we emotionally see what drives her to this. The telekinesis is out of her control. I mean, she's born that way, So whether that means that she was like graced by the devil or what have you, I don't know. I mean, also when the house goes to hell at the end, the house literally kind of crumbles into the earth.
Yes.
It can be argued that, it's Carrie, doing it to herself, or it could be just sort of like hell pulling her back down or whatever it is.
Oh, I don't like that latter. I mean, I totally get where we come from, but I hate that. I also never realized there's a final shot when the house is crumbling and we're zooming in on that really terrifying Jesus figure with all the arrows in its body.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize we do get a shot of Carrie's body right next to it.
Crushed.
It's so sad.
Yeah, and I'm only bringing up hell just because, listen, I mean, the religious aspects of this are so over the top. I mean, like the Jesus' light up eyes. I would say Jesus' light up eyes are one of the most terrifying images in this movie.
It's very, very evocative. But even like when Margaret White is talking about how she like enjoyed the dirty, bad sex, and you're kind of like, how come we're not naming this man? Like there's a reading to be had that she fucked like Satan or something.
Well, that will be dispelled obviously in The Rage Carrie 2. But but I was actually thinking too, has it ever been said that like Carrie was a product of rape?
I mean, that could be very plausible.
Yeah, but because the way Margaret talks about the night that it happened, she says, "Oh yeah, I liked it, I got into it," but like she was saying no. Well, maybe she doesn't say that, but like it sounds like a product of rape.
Oh yeah. I think so too. I mean, I think that what part of the brilliance of Carrie also is just the fact that De Palma made it his own. Like he wasn't slavish to the Stephen King book. Like this is a De Palma vision. Period. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And King loved it. Unlike The Shining, which I
was going to say the hits and misses of Stephen King's adaptations, especially early on, right?
Well, and this is also a time when he would say if he didn't like something.
Yeah.
Right.
And apparently this is his very first novel. It was like a novella.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not even 200 pages.
Yeah, and his wife, I think, was very hands-on in the editing of it.
Yeah, there's a famous anecdote.
Basically, he was writing it and he wrote 3 pages and like threw them away because he like just didn't think it was good. Anyone was going to read it. And then his wife, Tabitha, picked up those 3 pages and read them and said, don't throw this away. Please continue this story. And he did.
Right.
In a way, I feel like Stephen King and his wife are similar, the male and female of it all, right? It takes the male created this thing, the female pulled it out of the trash and said, this is worthy. And then De Palma gives you the male gaze in all the nudity, which is copious throughout, but also gives you the queerness. Like I think De Palma has a very queer other aesthetic that you see in everything he does. Yeah.
But I guess like with the male, I mean, yes, we have the inherent male gaze, and not to go all the way back to the opening scene, but yeah, with the nudity, I don't know. Do you feel like it's exploitative?
I don't, because I just feel like I get into what he's referencing.
Yeah.
It's like Sean Baker with Anora, the new Criterion covers referencing Vampiros Lesbos.
Right.
A lot of cinephiles love exploitation movies and copious female nudity and like transgressiveness in that aspect.
Yeah, I made a comment before we started recording that I don't know that I kind of want to hear what the kids think of this version of Carrie. And I was being facetious and a little bit of a like grumpy old man get off my lawn. But it is interesting because in some ways you would make this film in a much safer, more contained way. And I say that having not seen Kimberly Pierce's version of this. But
oh, you've never seen? Oh, I didn't know you hadn't seen it.
I have not. No, this is actually, I've only seen this one.
I haven't seen it either. Okay, guys, I haven't even seen Carrie 2: The Rage, and
you should
watch Carrie 2.
It's not as good, but I would argue that Katche has a good handle on the material, and like some of those moments really hit.
Well, I would argue this: like there are two other remakes of Carrie. We had the 2002 one with Angela Bettis and the 2013 Kimberly Pierce one.
Right.
But I would argue that The Rage Carrie 2, while it is a sequel, is essentially just another remake of Carrie.
Yeah.
I would say between the three, and granted, not a super high bar, but The Rage Carrie 2 is the best remake of Carrie out of all three. But I will say this, Kimberly Pierce does one thing, I think, better in that one.
It's how she handles Chris, right?
It's how she handles Chris's death specifically, because, and this is just very much a me thing, and Darren, I'm curious to know if you feel the same, but like, I always hate Chris and Billy's deaths because they just blow up, and I want them to know.
You want them to know and suffer.
Yes. And so what Kimberly Pierce does in the remake is, they're trying to run Carrie down. Carrie stops the car, and Billy dies after he like breaks his face on the steering wheel. But Carrie just tosses the car into a gas station. But here's the thing, it doesn't blow up, and Chris's head is like halfway through the windshield, and she is still alive, looking as Carrie walks up to her and watches her die.
Ooh. Oh my.
But also I would argue Chris is even worse in that movie than in this one, if you can think that's possible.
Okay, well, as far as the correlations between Jawbreaker and Carrie, one of them is that Charlotte Ayana went on to do, Charlotte, who played Liz Purr in Jawbreaker, went on to, she was in The Rage, the Carrie 2. I know that.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. I think she's one of the friends. Oh wait, no. Yeah. No, sorry. Mina Suvari is the one that kills herself, but she's one of the friends.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the scene when Chris is like cock teasing the Travolta character in the car, which is hilarious because she's like giving him head but also talking.
Oh, okay. Yes. I wrote in my notes.
Questions.
I want those powers.
That whole interaction, the cock teasing, is the inspiration behind that whole scene in Jawbreaker where she's making Dane give head to when Rose McGowan's making him give head to the...
It's like the lollipop, yeah. Or the popsicle, sorry.
Yeah, that comes straight out of Chris Hargison, for sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. Question for you then, Darren. Is there a kind of tracking correlation between Carrie White and the Violette character?
Yeah. Carrie White is fully the inspiration for Fern Mayo.
Okay.
Yeah, but so I guess Violette is
like... Judy Greer played Miss Collins in the Kimberly Pierce movie, right?
Yes, she did.
Oh.
And just like in the book, she doesn't die in that version.
Okay.
Which I love.
Well, I guess, okay, so were there any other, like, mean girls outside of Chris that fed into Courtney's character in Jawbreaker?
Yeah, I mean, Heathers, of course.
Well, yeah.
The DNA of Jawbreaker is Heathers, Carrie, Grease, and Rock and Roll High School. Those 4 movies.
Rock and Roll High School.
And PJ Souls is in 2 of them.
Right. So you're just a big fan, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I really am.
When you got PJ Souls for Jawbreaker, like, did you tell her, by the way?
Are you kidding? I fangirled my fucking face out.
Well, because how old were you when you made Jawbreaker? You were
25 or 26. I was so young. And when I made Sparkler... I don't know, I would say 26 or 27, but Sparkler, my first film, I was like 24, 25, and I remember having a meeting with Veronica Cartwright, and she talks about how I kept touching her and like, emoting and be like, I couldn't just stop touching her arm. I was excited to be there,
Yeah.
Oh my God, folks, if you have not seen Sparkler, I had the opportunity to review it recently because, Darren, it was kind of like not really readily accessible for a while, and then it became available again I want to say last year. So I had the chance to review it, and it's such a delightful, cute film. Like, folks, if you're looking for something a little heartwarming, but also has like just a touch of darkness to it, really highly recommend it.
And then the one that's heartwarming without the touch of darkness, that's GBF.
Right.
Yes.
Because Sparkler I co-wrote, so it definitely has to have the darkness.
Yeah.
GBF.
You did not.
Did not write. That was George Northby, who's brilliant. And
well, okay, so then to kind of like go out to the scope of your career as a whole then, so like, I guess what brought you out of directing retirement to do GBF, and why haven't you come out of directing retirement since?
I'm not retired. There's nothing about me that's retired. I've written several scripts in between these movies. They're just hard to get made. I just have not been blessed by the movie gods to get financed like other people have gotten financed. Right. So unfortunately, I haven't made as many movies, but hopefully the ones I make, have an impact.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they all become cult hits, Darren. Like, people obsess over these movies.
But Sparkler had, Freddie Prinze Jr., Jamie Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I think, too, also for Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jamie Kennedy, I mean, doing, like, a queer indie film in the mid-'90s, that seemed like a career risk.
Well, we weren't calling it queer back then. I mean... the main character, Park Overall's character, is not queer.
Yeah.
I'm queer, obviously, but it wasn't really spoken of back then as a thing as much. And, the third boy in the movie, their friend, played by Stephen Petrarca, comes out of the closet, and Jamie's character is kind of ambiguously queer. And then there's the lesbian couple, the older couple, Sandy Martin and Veronica Cartwright. So there's a lot of queerness in it, but funnily enough, that film did not get into Outfest because it wasn't
queer enough?
Yeah, the lead character wasn't queer.
What?
Okay.
So there was a lot of policing of, I think, queerness back in the early 90s.
It's a different landscape, right? Like, back then we needed the representation to be front and center, right? Because we were just so starved for it. But even in the indie scene, it was so hard to get those movies out to an audience unless you had a festival backing it.
I mean, the cool thing is it did premiere at a festival, and it did get released theatrically in New York and LA through Strand Releasing, which is great.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So Marcus Hugh was an early champion of the film, which I'm very grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
And Marcus, his mom loved it because a lot of the Strand films are really, really gay and really edgy. It's like lots of nudity and sex and stuff. And so
this one you can take your family to.
Yeah, Marcus would always tell me, my mom thinks Sparkler's her favorite Strand film, which I love.
It's like, I can take mom and not be a little embarrassed by this one just because, hey, you're going to see a big dick on the screen or something.
Yeah, but Sparkler is sort of the kinder and gentler side of me. I was in a relationship, and it was about a woman that I met in Victorville at this bar with my boyfriend, who was from Victorville, the small town on the way to Vegas. The Sparkler was a real person I met in real life, and she was sparkling in head to toe sequins, and I was like, we were obsessed with her. And it was this sort of fictional story of who was this woman, because she walked up to me and Tommy and his friend, and she was like, well, one of you young men care to dance with a lady? It's my first night out after 15 years of marriage, but I still got the moves.
She's like, I'm going to fleece these gay men for a good time.
Didn't know we were gay. We were just young men, and to her,
Nice. Whereas
Jawbreaker, so that movie's based on, I have a new movie I'm putting together now that's also based on my real life that I have Martha Plimpton and Jennifer Grey attached to, and David Krumholtz, but I have to get the financing.
Okay.
But I'm working on it. We're doing it. We're putting it together. But Jawbreaker, conversely, is really about the horror of growing up gay for me, And so that movie I call sort of like my Velvet Rage, like that thing that gay men have.
Yeah,
So mine came out in the character of Courtney and like the mean girl trope of, they killed their best friend with a Jawbreaker. Is it an accident or is it not? And regardless, they cover up the death, and it's really fucked up what they do, how they do it,
Well, yeah. but it's a dark comedy. I mean, it's a pitch black comedy.
Oh, yes.
But I had set out to write a horror film. That's the whole thing, is when I wrote Jawbreaker, I had set out to write a horror film. And that's why the first, 5 minutes is so horrific, because that's when the horror happens, right? Of like, oh, you see this big lump in her throat.
So was there ever a moment where that would have remained more of a horror and less of a dark comedy? Like,
yeah, the first draft of that movie, Liz Purr's ghost coming back. And at the end of it, there was a scene that was straight out of Elm Street 2. It was like a pool party, Oh.
Well, so I guess then at what point did you realize, or was there like a catalyst for you realizing, oh, wait, this needs to be a comedy?
I think it was just the development. I mean, well, first of all, when I started writing the girls' characters, it became a comedy because
Right.
Heather was so influential and just, I guess I like comedy. And listen, horror, I think a lot of the best horror has comedy in it. So it became comedic, but it's not the kind of like, it's not like broad comedy. It's more subversive comedy, you know?
Well, and that's the thing is like, I've watched movies that are as subversive, just like Jawbreaker. And it's interesting where you can like hear like a theater full of people laughing, but like, you know, the person next to you might be dead silent the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, the movie Jawbreaker just played at the Academy Museum. It was like a 25th anniversary screening. And Trixie Mattel moderated the Q&A. It was like 900 people. I mean, 900 people were there. I mean, if you ever told me that my film would be playing at the Academy Museum with 900 people there, I'd be like, you're fucking crazy.
Well, especially after the reception it got in 1999.
Oh, yeah. It got terrible reviews. And
of course it did.
And, you know, flopped in the box office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was there opening weekend, by the way, just so everybody knows. I was supporting those dark ass comedies.
Okay, well, I was 10, but I did watch it every time I saw it on USA.
Darren, this is us like touching your arm like you were touching Veronica Cartwright. Like, we love your work.
But I will say though, the popsicle scene, like that was definitely like a gay awakening for me, because I mean, I probably saw Jawbreaker for the first time when I was about like 11 or 12 years old on TV, admittedly, so you know it wasn't like profane, but they keep that popsicle scene in there, which is kind of surprising to me. But I just remember watching it as a kid and being like,
this unlocked something in me.
And you guys, when I wrote that scene, I remember thinking, I'm going to write a scene that I wanted to see in a high school movie. Because I grew up and I was a huge fan of the John Hughes movies. Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, even the trashy ones like Rock and Roll High School and like Can't Buy Me Love, or even like, you know, The Last American Virgin. All those sex comedies had nothing for the gays. I mean, yeah, Steve Anton's cute, but like, you know, what we still need more.
Yeah.
So I wrote that and I'm like, oh, this is going to be hilarious and no one's going to know. No one's going to really know what's happening except the gay guys. You know what I mean?
And so did that scene not give you any trouble with the MPAA? No. Because
well, the MPAA had a huge issue with the Marilyn Manson, the sex scene when she's because there's a dead body under the bed.
But they're not fucking the dead body.
No, but she's under the bed and then the high school girl's being fucked from behind by an adult.
Yeah. I mean, it is dark. I have heard people watch Jawbreaker later in life and they're just like, I cannot believe this scene is in this teen film.
But part of what the MPA said was like, there was too many thrusts. So we had to cut out.
Of course.
We literally had to cut out a couple of the thrusts in that scene.
Okay, I don't think the thrust counter is definitely a thing because like, but I don't think it's a thing anymore. Is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I like to think that they would have improved their tactics for being prudes, but prove us wrong, you motherfuckers. Darren, I have a question. So there was like reports in trades that there was a TV series of Jawbreaker, and I asked you if I could ask you this offline, and you said that you would talk about it. So can you tell us like what's going on with that? What was the log line? What were some of the things you're thinking? Is it still happening?
It's not happening.
Okay.
This is a while ago. Me and George, after GBF, we pitched a Jawbreaker series, which was basically kind of like a reboot.
Mm-hmm.
It was about I'm sorry, this is funny to talk about. It was about these like influencers, these LA influencer women in their 20s.
Yes.
And it begins at a bachelorette party, you know, they're kind of a clique, you know, but they all have like their followers and their followings. And they get their friend who's getting married, they get her a stripper.
Mm-hmm.
And the mean girl of the group, the main, she's like, you have to go all the way with him. It's your last night. You can do it. Just do it. You know, and they like make her have sex with him. And they have a ball gag, like one of those Jawbreaker ball gags during the sex. Which interestingly, after I made Jawbreaker, then there was like years later, there were Jawbreaker ball gags. But anyway, so...
the legacy.
Because I got that idea from like, I think Pulp Fiction or like gangster films where there was a ball gag involved, right? With mafia movies.
Yeah.
And the Jawbreaker was like a teen girl's
version of it. Yeah.
Okay.
She gags the guy with that. She's on him, having sex with him. It gets crazy. The gag breaks. The Jawbreaker suffocates him.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a line of dialogue in that was, how long was I riding that dead dick?
And this isn't getting made?
And then what happens is his they cover up the murder, and then his like kind of trailer trash girlfriend gets word of it, and the influencers turn her into one of them to keep her quiet.
Okay.
It was really fun. It was really fun. And the only reason why it didn't get made was because it was for the E channel back then when E was doing scripted stuff. And they stopped doing scripted after that. And then they chose, it was between our show and another show, and they chose the other show, which wasn't even as fun. Long story short, that's dead. But there's also been Jawbreaker, the stage musical, which is still very, very much alive. Mm-hmm. It almost got on a stage about 10 years ago in Seattle with the producers that come from LA. And we had readings in LA and New York with like Liz Gillies playing Courtney and with like Kate Flannery playing Miss Sherwood, and Carol Kane did a reading.
Oh,
nice.
It's been wild. Oh, JoJo after GBF. JoJo played the Rebecca Gayheart role.
Oh my God, I forgot JoJo was in GBF. Because I think when I saw GBF, I wasn't familiar with JoJo as a singer. I got into her later when she started doing music again.
Yeah.
Right.
So it just didn't happen, you know? And then I pitched it. I sold it to Columbia a couple years back as a movie musical remake.
Right.
Columbia paid me to write that. So I wrote that. And I've been having meetings with actresses about that. Like Kim Petras wants to do it. In this version, Fern is trans.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's a musical. It's wild. It is wild. It's basically a remake of the movie.
But yeah.
As a musical, but with a trans Fern.
Right.
Okay, wait. So you actually written the movie musical?
Well, there's the libretto. I wrote the libretto for the stage musical that has a composer and lyricist that are Jeff Thompson and Jordan Mann. But then the movie musical is also the same music from the stage musical, but I wrote the script, and it's
right.
But it's got the music, and Kim Petras was interested in playing Fern. Like I've met with like McKenna Grace wanted to be in it. Like everybody, all the girls are into it. It's hard to get it made because
we're trying to convince dumb old men to give you money for something that's young and female.
But it's also a musical.
Yeah, but Mean Girls just came out.
Well, yeah, but
Mean Girls was on Broadway. You know, Mean Girls is a much bigger movie than Jawbreaker. It's Tina Fey. Right. Wicked was on Broadway. Wicked obviously is a much bigger property. You know, unless it's hard, and then a film like Emilia Perez gets made because it's made overseas. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the stuff that the streamers make domestically is really not is tame.
It's not button pushy.
No, not at all. So now what I'm doing yet another pivot. Which you're gonna love. I think I'm gonna do Jawbreaker, like a legit horror sequel.
Oh my God!
Like a legacy sequel? Can you get them back?
Oh yeah, all the girls want to be in it. They're all down for it. And I just got to figure out if I'm gonna go in the direction supernatural or not supernatural. Like I can go straight slasher, or I could go supernatural, like Prom Night 2 style. Where maybe Courtney is haunting some new girl, and
oh my God,
they're killing people with like pranks gone wrong.
Yeah,
like it's one of those things where, like, I mean, because I'm sure the studios would be like, well, who's the audience for this? And it's like, well, the original has a cult following, like the audience is there, but it's like I'm sure that's going to be the wall you're up against every single time.
Well, I'm not sure. I think with a horror movie, it won't be as bad because Sony's.
You can make them cheap, and there's always an audience for them.
Right, and right now Sony's doing. I know you did last summer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I heard they're doing Urban Legend, and they're doing Idle Hands. So all three of those films that came out circa Jawbreaker, why shouldn't my film get a fucking legacy horror remake?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will say the Urban Legend was announced years ago with Colin Minahan directing, and that fell through. So
it's back.
It's back. Okay.
Yeah, it's back on the. Yeah.
Oh God.
So I'm excited. I'm excited by that because for ever since I made Jawbreaker, obviously the fans have been wanting a sequel, right?
Yes.
I never did that. Even Rose has talked about it. Like everybody's wanted it. And there's a whole decade, right, after Jawbreaker that it would have been like Cruel Intentions 2, which is direct to video. And I wasn't interested in that. Interestingly, Cruel Intentions 2 used the exact score as Jawbreaker, which I think is hilarious.
Well,
really?
The actual score they repurposed for Cruel Intentions 2, yeah.
Because that movie was supposed to be a TV pilot, and then they changed it into a movie when I guess that the pilot didn't get picked up.
I think so, yeah.
I don't know, but I ran into Roger Campbell. Anyway, I ran into him at a party, and he's like, "Oh my God, we use the music from Jawbreaker in Cruel Intentions 2." I'm like, "Oh, cool!" And I thought he was talking about like songs from Jawbreaker. I didn't realize
the score,
the actual score.
Sir, you should send some pennies my way then.
Seriously.
So question, if you do happen to get a legacy sequel off the ground, you mentioned you could go the kind of supernatural route or other. Are you leaning, or would you lean more in one way or another? Like what would catch your flight of fancy more?
I really had to start. I had to put some thought into it, honestly. I mean, it was funny because the Boulets were like, you should do it like Prom Night too, like Hello Mary Lou. And I'm like,
Yes.
such a great idea. But I also have to think about like, how do we get this film made today at Columbia, at Sony, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I just have to think it through, I have to just put on my thinking cap about that.
Well, because I guess also like, would you call it Jawbreaker 2 or would it be just called Jawbreaker again? Or
It's however the studio would market it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd probably just be called Jawbreaker again, but it would be like a new crop of high school students. And then like in the musical, for example, I was planning on casting Judy Greer as Miss Sherwood, so I'd have I'd have Judy Greer probably as Miss Sherwood, and Rebecca and Julie would be mothers, and then Rose, we'd have to figure out what Courtney's, if she's alive or if she's dead, or what she's up to, how that's working.
Right.
How the horror sort of begins again at school,
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. I love that.
I mean, the Mary Lou route is fun because it really like leans into the campy element of it, right?
True.
Right. Well, I guess that, would it be more of a, like you said, straight horror film, or what is the ratio of horror to comedy that you're going to want to do?
Well, that's another question. You know what I mean? I mean, the other concern is like, how do we get this film made, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Idle Hands was always just a straight horror comedy, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Urban Legend was was horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last Summer was horror. So I don't know yet. I mean, I'm kind of feeling like it's horror just with some
bitchy lines.
Yeah.
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 I mean, like Sorority Row.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be like, instead of a horror comedy, a fun horror movie that's still a horror movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, where's your horror movie? I produced All About Evil that I didn't write or direct.
Right.
That Peaches Christ directed, which is really fun, but that's like a horror comedy, right? And
it is.
That's a complete gonzo vision.
Well, and that, I mean, Peaches Christ, that's just pure camp.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's not getting made. That's not getting made anytime soon at Sony. So yeah, I think going the fun horror movie would be the way to go with it for sure.
Mm.
I just and the bottom line is, if I'm writing it, if I'm creating it, it's always going to have some kind of subversive something going on.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about making it quote unquote, original, unique, or different, because I feel like that's sort of in my DNA in a weird way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need it. I'm ready for it. I went to all these horror conventions with the girls. Was it last year or a couple years ago?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I guess for Jawbreaker. Yeah.
Spooky Empire did this whole thing. They made these like limited edition posters, and I love horror. I've always loved the genre. Like I said, it was meant to be a horror film to begin with. So it's like, why not lean fully into it?
Exactly. Come full circle.
I'm just really happy to know that all the girls want to come back, because that honestly, like, whenever I've thought about a follow up, whatever it is to Jawbreaker, I've always been like, I don't know, would all of them come back?
Well,
yeah, you need the crew back.
Rose is not acting anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and she's not even coming to LA. I mean, she lives in Mexico. So Rose, I would have to figure out what that is.
Yeah, that might be a cameo.
Yeah, maybe it's just her voice. I don't know. I don't know what it is. That I have to think about it some more. But definitely Judy, Julie, and Rebecca for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, Darren, I mean, thanks for stopping by to dish on all of that. And to give us your thoughts on Carrie as well. I mean, it's always like nice to get in the mind of the creator.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed discussing it. I mean, it's such an important film to me in such a visceral way,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad that you were curious to hear how it connected to Jawbreaker.
Of course. Well,
by the way, it even connects to GBF, because at the end of that movie, they pour glitter on the Brent character. So it's like that's a Carrie homage as well.
Oh, yes.
I mean, to be clear, there are quite a few Carrie homages in high school cinema.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Carrie is the DNA. I would even say Carrie is the DNA of Heather's.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what if there were 3 Chris Harkinsons?
Oh my God. Let's not say we did.
Oh boy. Well, everyone, that has been Darren Stein on Carrie. So please, Darren, let everyone know, where can they find you on social media?
Just at Darren Stein on Instagram is great.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah, keep us up to date on everything Jawbreaker related. But until next time, we can cross this interview out.
Indeed. Cross out horror queers.